Phillipsburg Town Council meeting, December 5th, 2023.
Call this meeting to order. Council Vice President, will you please read the open public meeting statement?
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of December 5th, 2023 was included in a list of meeting notices sent to newspapers of record and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and has remained continuously posted as required notice under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk.
Thank you. Mayor-elect, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Precious Lord, please give us guidance in this meeting, because the lack of guidance causes the nation to fall, but victory is won through many advisors. Lord, let us not be misguided in this meeting so that we do not lead to decisions that produce ineffective results. I pray that you direct our steps so that this meeting can achieve our kingdom aims. We place you at the center of this. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Kennedy?
Here.
Councilman Marino?
Here.
Councilman Piazza?
Here.
Council Vice President Clark?
Here.
Council President Wyatt?
Here. Could we have a summary of the bill list, please?
The regular bill list as of December 5th, 2023 is $148,496.65. The prepaid bill list is $34,281 for a total of $182,777.65.
Thank you. Any question on the summary of the bill list?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilman Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Wyatt?
Yes. Okay, has everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes of November 21st?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Wyatt?
Yes. Okay, we have an individual here from McDonald's to address the sidewalk waiver that we've had discussions on previously.
Good evening, Council President, members of council. My name is Sherilyn Walters. I'm a partner at the law firm of Hemat Davis & Goldstein. We represent McDonald's USA LLC. McDonald's has been before your land use board for a site plan approval to convert the single lane drive-through to a side-by-side drive-through. As part of that project, a sidewalk request was made of the board and town engineer. Pursuant to your code, we've applied, McDonald's has applied to council for a waiver of sidewalk. The site is located at 660 Memorial Parkway. Designated as block 1004, lot 4. It's got primary frontage on Memorial Parkway, and it's got secondary frontage on Marshall Street just behind us over here. We initially submitted the sidewalk waiver request by letter dated May 12, 2023. We first met with council on June 6th of this year. At that time, we explained the process for the sidewalk and the justification for the waiver. Council denied the waiver request regarding Memorial Parkway and reserved decision on the waiver request regarding Marshall Street so that our engineer and your engineer can have some further discussion about that. In the interim, the planning board granted site plan approval on June 26, 2023, conditioned upon us complying with whatever the sidewalk determination is that comes out of council. Then we wrote a letter on August 11, 2023, invoking the ADA 20% rule with respect to both frontages. After that, there was a meeting with the engineers and myself and your solicitor, Mr. Wenner, a virtual meeting where we went through the situation and the positions back and forth. Our engineer and your engineer had a further conversation after that, developed an alternative plan, which my engineer is here to share with you this evening. And then we submitted a follow-up letter on November 28th. McDonald's took that alternative plan, went to its general contractor, and got a bid for the work, the scope of work in that alternative plan so that we could determine the costs The overall cost, based upon the documentation that we submitted for the side-by-side project, is around $160,000. The overall cost for the sidewalk on each frontage exceeds $80,000 for each frontage. Under the ADA 20% rule, any project that is being undertaken on an existing developed lot where sidewalk would be proposed, ADA compliant sidewalk would be proposed. If the cost of that sidewalk exceeds 20% of the cost of the underlying project, there's an exception to the ADA. So initially in August, we had requested that the council, through our August 11th letter, reconsider its denial of the sidewalk along Marshal, and also grant a waiver of the sidewalk, reconsider the denial of the sidewalk along Memorial, the M's get me confused, and then grant the waiver along Marshall. In our November 28th letter, we've since said we've withdrawn the request for you to reconsider that denial along Memorial. McDonald's will put the ADA compliant sidewalk and the pedestrian connection along Memorial, as our engineer will show you. We are still requesting the waiver for the sidewalk along Marshall Street because of the grading and topography issues that we previously discussed. The retaining wall was, my engineer is going to explain to you, they've redesigned the potential sidewalk along Marshall to avoid the retaining wall, which was a significant cost. It pushes the sidewalk out into Marshall Street, which we don't believe is a safe condition that anybody should support. So we're still asking for the waiver for sidewalk along Marshall Street. I have with me Mr. Mike Geithner from Bowler Engineering. He'd just like to go, I'd like him to show you what the revised concept looks like. We did submit this to your engineer. I think I saw him in here earlier. I'm not sure if he's still here. We haven't really heard anything back from him since we submitted that. But this is the plan. Mike, if you would just step forward. I don't know if you want to swear him in, since he's not counsel.
Sure. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Geithner, just please state your name for the record.
Sure. Michael Geithner, Jeitner.
And Mr. Geithner, are you an engineer with Bowler Engineering?
I am a licensed engineer, a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey.
And you were qualified before the Phillipsburg Planning Board with respect to the site plan application as an expert in the field of engineering, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay, I don't necessarily need to qualify him tonight, just wanted you to understand that he has been qualified by your planning board. Mr. Geithner, are you the project engineer for this project?
I am, and I can kind of get into this real quickly. I think the board has seen this. We've worked very closely with the board, your professionals, really looking to come to some type of understanding, or I think you use the word compromise, but basically seeing what we could do with alternative ideas to kind of reduce some of the scope, reduce some of the cost. So I'll start with Memorial Parkway. That's the top portion here. Again, the ingress is on the left-hand side. The egress, or the out, is on the right-hand side. We're able to kind of tie in our sidewalk to the adjacent commercial development that's under construction. So all that will tie in along the front. But we looked at really taking that sidewalk, bringing it into the site a little bit closer in order to really avoid doing work within the DOT right-of-way and avoiding NJDOT permitting, as we know that could really open up a can of worms sometimes with additional requirements. So that was really our intent with bringing that down closer and then bringing up along the right-of-way, crosswalk, and then extending the sidewalk to the edge of the property line. And in doing so, we'd have a street sidewalk connection directly to the McDonald's. That was the key there. As you can see, the dark gray areas, that's where we're going to need to do some either mill and overlay or full depth new pavement. So we start talking about the cost associated with this to bring some of that sidewalk in the ADA conformance and the corresponding slopes of the required sidewalks. That's where a lot of the pavement needs to be either re-poured or milled and overlay in order to meet those slope tolerances. So the majority, when we hear sidewalk, we hear like a short frontage, we think it's not that much, but the dark gray area is really what jumps that cost up. So we have that. Along Marshall Street, we looked at a couple alternatives. The first one we looked at early on in the project back during the summer. We looked at basically the sidewalk within the current curb line of the street. And if you're aware, there's a significant slope coming off the back of the McDonald's parking lot area down to the street within that area. And we showed that originally there was an extensive retaining wall that would be required to kind of hold that earth back within that area in order to really not only have the sidewalk there, but to have some acceptable slopes. So in speaking to your engineer, we talked about an alternative to remove that wall and really taking that sidewalk and bringing it out to the street. Since Marshall Street is a pretty wide cartway. And in doing so, we can get that sidewalk in there, but now we're constructing the sidewalk kind of out into the street line. We can handle that with some striping nonetheless, but still an extensive area coming up and making that street sidewalk connection. You see again, that significant area of additional pavement restoration that would be required because of the steep slopes that are within that area. So again, we looked at alternatives on both streets to kind of bring it into ADA conformance, but also looking at trying to reduce some costs associated with that. And as such, I think that was part of what was submitted as part of the correspondence from our project attorney.
So what that translates into is sidewalk in the street on the street side of the curb line, which is something that I don't know about you personally, but I think that's a public safety hazard. People coming down Marshall aren't going to be expecting a sidewalk to just kind of bump out into the street. And while you might be able to put some marking on the street, it's not necessarily a safe condition. But in addition to that, the information we submitted with our November 28th letter, we have these bid estimate from, or the bid from the McDonald's general contractor, and the scope of work required in that gray area that you see on the plan along Marshall totals a little over $65,000 in this reconfigured plan, which more than exceeds the ADA 20% rule. So what we're really asking council to do is just take into consideration the ADA 20% rule exception and not require McDonald's to put a sidewalk on the street side of your curb line and create an unsafe condition.
I'd like to hear.
I'm sorry, I just wanted, just to be clear, I am looking for a motion tonight of some sort from council, whether it's to approve or deny the waiver for Marshall Street. We are, again, going to put in the sidewalk along Memorial. That's no longer an issue. Thank you.
I'd like to hear from our engineer, Tim.
Good evening. So yes, as part of the land use process, we did make note that land use didn't have jurisdiction to waive sidewalks on the application, only council did. Previous items, I did indicate that it is feasible to put sidewalk and comply with ADA. I reached out to the Access Board, which is the agency that oversees ADA regulations. I did provide that information over to the applicant and to the town. And the Access Board did indicate to an extent feasible and within the scope of work that they could install it up to a certain limit. So some of the improvements that are talking about being costly, it's, in terms of Access Board's opinion, if it's not within the scope of the project, it wouldn't necessarily need to be updated. So the cross slope at the crosswalks coming through the existing driveway aprons may not need to be upgraded to do that. Where for the applicant it becomes a issue is that lawsuits may not agree with that, and juries may not find the same. So to their concern, it is valid to want to construct it 100% to the T to ADA regulations, which they provide cost estimates for. If the council is considering this, there is a need to, at some point, install sidewalk along 22 frontage along Marshall. Whether it occurs with this particular project is up to council. We would not support any kind of waiver that says for the future, at no point will somebody need to put sidewalk on Marshall or 22. If they're willing to put their plan to accommodate the 22 frontage is what I had discussed over the phone with the engineer at some point. I haven't seen the email from the 28th, but what it showed on the plan here is in line. They're going to put an ADA accommodating sidewalk. They want to avoid the DOT frontage, which may reduce the scope of work, but you have DOT permits that could take quite an extensive time, as the town is aware of on their own projects. The Marshall frontage, you can safely put a sidewalk into Marshall Street. You would realign the curb alignment, no different than road diets done across the state and across the country. We reduce the width of the road. There's appropriate tapers and everything else that can be done. So it would not be done in an unsafe manner, but that still has a cost to it. And regardless if you put it in the road or behind the existing curb line, when you put it in the road, you move the curb line out with it. They would still need to regrade their Marshall entrance to an extent to get the cross slope of the pedestrian route over that to 100% comply, to avoid potential litigation issues down the road. But they could still build it up to an extent that would be compliant with ADA without touching it.
Okay, is there any questions?
Council President, is that right? So I just want to start off by saying my number one priority was definitely the Memorial Parkway side. So in my opinion, that was definitely a huge hazard being right along the highway right there. So I just want to thank McDonald's for that. Regarding the sidewalk on Marshall Street, how far out would it be protruding out into Marshall Street are we talking?
It could be as low as, if assuming you couldn't use any of the real estate at the curb line that's there now, 4 to 5 feet.
4 to 5 feet?
Yeah.
So it's not like a huge swash we're talking about here.
No, 4 to 5 feet. They would end up excavating to get the curb in. It's another 2 feet into the road for a repair strip, and then from wherever the sidewalk starts, you would have a transition, potentially 20 or 30 feet above or below to transition the curb line.
And what you're saying is eventually we would have to do something like this down the road, whether it's with this project or another initiative, just to avoid lawsuits?
At some point, there's a need, the lawsuit, not to avoid lawsuits for not having a sidewalk, but to, if they don't build the sidewalk 100% to the ADA standards at the time of construction, they're concerned that they could be subject to a ADA compliance lawsuit. So somebody goes to use McDonald's, and the town will likely get pulled into that too. But there is, in the sense with engineering, whenever we're designing the ADA, we try to meet the ADA code to a T and try to avoid working in areas that leeway that ADA has, but it's not always clear.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm one always err on the side of safety, and I'm gonna be in favor of putting that sidewalk in on Marshall Street. I mean, we were told if the sidewalk goes in, somehow that would be a hazard, as opposed to people walking on Marshall Street. So I'm always gonna err on the side of caution, and, you know, I will not be voting for a waiver.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, so Marshall Street, we're looking at, how many feet out into Marshall?
4 to 5 feet. It depends on
4 to
how
5
much.
feet.
It could be less depending on how the grading works, but it definitely needs to encroach into the existing pavement on Marshall.
So, I,
Yeah,
okay, so I
without, you can go the route and you can construct a small retaining wall 2 to 3 feet along the front between the curb and the sidewalk you go, or curb, sidewalk, retaining wall that would be 2 to 3 feet high across that expanse.
I see this as the jettison into Marshall as a potential safety issue as well. When you're driving down the street, especially people who are, you know, they may be going to the college, who are from out of town, things like that, they don't know the road. And to have something jetting out to a road, you know, we're gonna, for snow emergencies, things like that as well, but anybody who has ever plowed like municipal roads, to have something, the guys will eventually learn where it's at, but if they don't get to that road, there's a truck broken, snow piling up on the roads hides that, you know, jettison coming out in Marshall Street. I could also see it forcing people to walk out into traffic a little bit too, because you're not walking in line with the other straight curbs. You're kind of, you know, you're making the people veer off into traffic. It's only a couple inches off the ground. It's not really going to stop a car unless we ask for a guide rail as well. Even they don't stop cars, they only guide them. So I kind of think the jettison might actually be more dangerous than making people walk across the street on Marshall. That's just my opinion of it.
Councilman Moreno?
Well, number one, I didn't hear anything about there's going to be lines where people can cross the street, so they're going to be jaywalking, number one. And I agree with Councilman Piazza. If you jet out that road, somebody's going to hit that curb, somebody's going to hit someone. It's getting dark out now. I'm in favor of granting that waiver. It's been there. People know the road. They're going to plow it in the wintertime. I think it would create more of a hazard to people needing a motorized cart or anything like that, plus the fact there is no marking to cross there. And I'm afraid that, like Randy said, if being jetting out, someone's gonna hit it.
Yeah, so you do have that same condition throughout the town. Roseberry Street's an example. You actually, Roseberry Street narrows down.
Right.
There's a standard transition of when you're narrowing a road, what that curb alignment will look like. So there is engineering standards to do that in a safe manner. Not to say your concerns that were mentioned aren't valid, but there are engineering ways to do that, and you do have that in town.
I mean, I'm for ADA compliant, but I don't see moving that line out 4 feet, 5 feet is going to solve the problem. I'm not an engineer, but just going on. If I'm walking across there, like I say, you're jaywalking at every angle on Marshall Street. If you've seen people during the day there, and even at night, and it's not well lit. So now you're going to go out 4 to 5 feet. Someone's going to hit that curb, hit that sidewalk. I'm in favor of safety. Leave it the way it is.
Okay. I agree with Councilman Piazza. I think we'll have a great improvement if we get a sidewalk on 22. I would like to see a waiver given, but not a temporary waiver. Is that what you would call it? A temporary waiver, so that in the future, say McDonald's leave and they redo the whole area, we're not tied to a hard waiver.
Yeah, like the next time they renovate the store like they did within the last 20 years, where they basically knocked the store down and rebuilt the whole thing.
Right.
The cost of that project is a bit more sizable than what they're currently proposing for striping and some sign.
Right.
So potentially a temporary waiver on this project, but not a lifetime relief for this property or project.
Right, so if I could get a motion for a temporary waiver at this time for Marshall Street and the approval to put the sidewalk on 22, which they have agreed to.
I'll motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, could I get a roll call on that, please?
Councilman Kennedy?
No.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Wyatt?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to go into a short executive session, if I could get a motion.
So second.
Okay, I'm gonna...
Where are we going that for? You got to state it for the public.
Yeah, the contractual.
We're going to be going into executive session to discuss matters of contract specifically
Enterprise leasing.
with Enterprise Leasing.
Council entered into executive session and then returned from executive session.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Wyatt?
Yes. Okay, we were
We were in executive session to discuss matters of contract, specifically the potential lease of police vehicles through Enterprise Corporation. And there's going to be some action taken on that this evening.
might as well take that action now. If you want, we'll make a motion to...
Want me to say the motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
We got a motion authorizing the business administrator to send a letter of intent to Enterprise for the potential lease of 4 police vehicles, which will be binding if and when they come to an agreement on the terms.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Wyatt?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Moving right along, Tim, if you'd like to come up again and talk about the the community projects.
Yes, so tonight is the public hearing for a grant that's being issued by the Department of Community Affairs, referred to as the Resilient Communities Grant. The grant is due December 15, 2023, and awards may be up to $5 million with no match requirement. This is a reimbursable grant, so you spend the money, you get your money back from the state after they approve the manner in which you spent it, confirm you applied with the grant. Very similar to some DOT grants. The application process that the state requires a public hearing to be held. Public notice was provided in the newspaper and posted at Town Hall. The notice was published in English and Spanish according to the grant requirements. There is a public comment period for this, which public comments can be submitted to my email, tobrien@vancleefengineering.com. So that's TOBRIEN VANCLEEFENGINEERING.com. Whatever comments you provide me, the grant requires me to incorporate that document into the grant in full. If you're trying to remain anonymous, please indicate it, and I will do my best to try it, as long as the state doesn't ask for the full original. Whether the comment's good or bad, or whatever it may be, it'll be incorporated. As part of the requirement, the public notice needed to list the number of potential projects the town may consider. It's not limited to the projects listed, but is a starting point for the public hearing to give the public and the governing body and members of the community a sense of what the funds may be used for. Also, as part of the requirement, none of the funds are proposed at this time to be used for the purchase of a property that's currently occupied for residential purposes, or with the intent to relocate any occupied homes, or to purchase any residential properties that are currently used as residential but may not be occupied. Of the projects that were listed in the hearing notice, they are generally in priority order, which is based on discussions with the Director of Municipal Services, Pat Case, and with Fire Chief Hay, who is also the OEM coordinator for the town, based on a review of the town's hazard mitigation plan and the parameters of the grant. So the first project that came up is listed as stream bank restoration stabilization of the Low Pad Creek, generally within the limits of the town of Phillipsburg. This would include removing any storm debris, which may be down trees. It could be somebody's patio chair, tires, anything that's collected in the stream that really should not be in the stream. And then it also address any outfalls that are along the stream within the area of cleanup of the Low Pad Creek that may need to be restabilized. Generally, that cost is not covered under any disaster recovery. The latest storm cleanup of the stream is not covered by the initial storm response refundable grants or money they put out there. So this is a unique one that could cover it. The next one on the list is consideration for obtaining funds for the purchase of the Agway property located off South Main Street. The property was identified as part of master plan area in need of redevelopment, and is located in the flood hazard area. It represents fill in the flood hazard area. So within the grant provides provisions that you can acquire properties within a flood hazard area for the purpose of improving the quality of the stream or flood conditions. So if you acquire the property, it would give the town the opportunity to improve the property and potentially reduce flood hazards in that area. Abandoned properties that get subject to flood hazard could eventually deteriorate and end up in the creek. The The next item on the list is for purchasing installations of generators for emergency shelters and heating and cooling centers in the town of Phillipsburg and emergency operations centers. Emergency operations centers would be your potentially places where the police operate out of or OEM operates out of, or public works that may be critical to maintain town facilities during disaster events. The shelters would have to be shelters open to the public for purposes of heating and cooling or providing disaster assistance. The Chief Hay had identified that not all locations within the town that are used for those purposes are on the generator 100% and can use a generator, with priority going to locations that do not have a generator, and also it may be able to expand facilities to serve those purposes also. It's not intending to take a building that's already on a generator that operates 100% of the building and put a new generator, just replace the generator for the sake of replacing. For places that generally don't have one or the generator is not sized to service the entire facility. The next item is reconstruction of Warren Street Basin. So along Warren Street, next to the school, next to Roseberry House, where the railroad trestle, there's actually a stormwater basin system that was last rehabbed in the late 80s, early 90s. That helps mitigate runoff from the U.S. highway, portions of Lopat, some of Phillipsburg, that mitigates flooding downstream. With the increased storm intensities that the state has published and requires design to, there's a need to overhaul that basin to meet the current standards as they stand today and to make safety improvements to the existing basin regardless of the storm intensities. So this is a grant that could potentially do that for that. The next item on the list is the Mercer Street culvert. So it's referred to Mercer Street culvert. It's on Mercer Street across from the basketball courts playground, the contractor in town, manufacturer, and the church. It runs between the church and the contractor's yard underneath the railroad bed for Norfolk. It then enters through Delaware River Park, generally in right field by the flag, right field foul line, then it cuts the second base, goes back towards the skate park and then out towards the river. The line is compromised a few years ago. The town did some work to try to free up the line and clear the line. It was found that that was not feasible and the recommendation was to replace it. Last year the town applied for community funds for that one. It was estimated closer to $10 million for the replacement of that line. So this would be a grant to develop a new culvert system out there that would likely include a stormwater pump facility to pump the water up over the rail, up to grade, over the landfill, because you can't necessarily dig through or want to maintain a storm line anymore through a municipal landfill that's subject to settlement and other environmental issues to sort of maintain the line, and then a new discharge point to the Delaware River. The plan hasn't been designed, so the complete impact of the park is not clear. But right now, generally, the fields and stuff down there are not used. The number 6 on the list is installation of backflow preventers along the Delaware River and Lopat Creek. So if that entail any of the outfalls for the town of Phillipsburg, particularly for stormwater, we would install a type of flap or valve that when water levels in the creek or river rise to a point that they actually start backflowing into the storm conveyance system in the town, we would prevent the water from backing up and potentially causing localized flooding. So that would be the plan, and you would develop an overflow so the water could leave the conveyance system, but not the river water coming back into the system. The next item is elimination of cross connections between storm and sanitary that results in additional flows into the storm system and poses an increased risk of flooding downstream. So the idea with this project has ability to address infrastructure projects that make the community more resilient to increased storm events and mitigate flood hazards. It's not going to prevent flood hazards. So by taking any extraneous sanitary flows that are legacy connections, whatever, or cross connections between, say, somehow a sanitary line got connected to the storm mistakenly, we go in, we remove those, whatever that flow from the sanitary now allows for more flow for storm during storm events. From tonight's meeting, there needs to be input from the governing body, input from the public to try to identify the project's priorities. The priority list that was provided tonight is generally projects that are a bit more feasible than the next one below. The big one on the list, Mercer Street, has been talked about quite a bit. The price tag's $10 million. The grant's only up to $5 million, so the town, if you apply, you'd be putting yourself out there to cover the rest of it. So that's why it's a little bit lower project. The stream bank restoration is priority 1 because even after the last storm, it is needed to go in and clean. It's a shovel-ready project that you could quickly, if you got the funds, go out to bid, and it's tangible. It doesn't require acquisition of any property. Number 2 is up on the priority list. To do number 2, you need consent of the property owner to do it, either in letter form from the property owner to be able to do that, because the grant does require consent. There is consideration that the town and the county are potential to have tax implication or tax liens on the property. Maybe you take that position as the lien holder to authorize the grant application. And then if you do get the money, work with the property owner to come to terms. The next one is the generators. It's another tangible shovel-ready project. The fire chief and OEM director have already identified properties that would need it. You would need to prepare specifications in a short time for the installation and bid of the project, so it's a tangible project. Marshal Street Basin's 4. It hasn't been designed, so it has a little bit longer lead time on that project, so it may not be as shovel-ready as the grant application prefers. But if you get down to that point when consideration, if you need a project to put forward, it is a sound project. Talked about where 5 is. 6 and 7 are towards the bottom of the priority list. 7, there's potential for other funds to try to address that. And if you only get that project, it may not make sense to apply for this because you have a small number of those issues. 6, it's not a high-cost project. It is something the town should consider, but there are projects above it that are warrant attention before you get to that local vendors. And I would need a motion from council tonight to authorize the submission of the grant application.
Okay, council?
And please, just at some point, open it up to the public for comment. The comments will be included into the application if authorized.
Okay. I'll entertain council first, and then I'll open it up to the public.
I'll make that motion.
I want comments
Oh, first.
from the council first.
I think I'm in favor of the priority list as written. You know, the first one being the most achievable and shovel-ready. The second one, there are some tax implications. We would be assuming some debt by purchasing it, correct?
In terms of your purchase, you'd be purchasing the property, and likely you need, many times, the owner of the property may not be in a position to clear all the debts on it, so that would need to factor into the acquisition cost that you would have to pick
We'd
up.
also have to negotiate price, right?
You have to negotiate price. That there's been no discussions on that, and they also need to negotiate the terms of the debts, any debt settlement. So whether it's municipal taxes, county taxes, or federal liens.
I see that if we move that up and we apply for that one, I can see that us being in a weak negotiating position, that we've just, you know, we put everything towards this one obstacle. So even though there is a lot of problems, you can't really build too much on it. There is tax liens. The person knows that we've pushed all of our chips in on this one project now. We're in a weak position to negotiate on cost, and that, you know, that money that we may need to pay off the liens and make that site safe, which it's not. I mean, it's a disaster right now. I think that puts us in a pretty bad spot going this direction to try to obtain that property. So I think the first one would be my opinion.
And potentially with the priority list, you can consider saying this is priority 1, this is priority 2, and that you want the grant application to be up to a certain cost. So as we start to refine the details, we may get through a couple different priorities to hit that number. So if you say you want to cap the application capped at $1 million, when after your input tonight, we can then start refining the cost, and we may get through priority 1 prior
Okay.
what comes out of the meeting as 2 or 3.
Okay.
Ideally, we get through the whole list and get everything, but I know for sure you're not. If you do Mercer Street, you're going to have to put money in.
Yeah, that seems like a bigger financial ask of the town, and more
It is a
potential for failure of not completing a project.
Okay.
Just a couple of questions. Regarding the grant, so is this a $5 million grant, or is it a grant up to $5 million?
Up to $5 million.
So it's possible we may get less depending on how much money is allocated to other towns and projects?
Correct. I haven't seen the total allocation for the program from the state. They didn't indicate that in the documents, and they did not indicate an anticipated number of awards or the minimum award.
Okay.
They said up to $5 million, and they've been strongly marketing this program all summer.
All right. And then regarding priority number 3, so I agree that the emergency generator should be a priority. My question is, how many shelters currently don't have a backup emergency generator compared to the ones that do?
I do not have an exact count, but it was in the magnitude of at least 6 locations that it was targeted for generators.
Okay. And then you already answered one of my questions regarding how we can spread out the funds if awarded. So essentially, we don't have to put all the eggs in one basket. We could do like $1 million for this priority 1, $1 million, or $2 million for priority 2 kind of thing, or however.
It's going to be one application, and when the cost estimate for it, we would break it into the different different project category indications here. So the overall application will last for X dollars, and it will be made up of these individual detailed projects. And then the narrative for the program will indicate that we would appreciate $5 million if that's what you would like to apply it to, but we understand it may not be available, and we've kindly segmented our different projects for your consideration for funding. So if they come back with $4 million instead of 5, they may give us input on which of the ones they thought fit the narrative or fit the scope. They may find some technical flaw on their side and say we can't fund that. Say if say the acquisition, you didn't necessarily have the right paperwork for the property, or they may say we can't fund that one, but we can fund your other 4.
And finally,
And then you should get the grant announcement and grant agreement. That way it would be the next step where if you didn't like the terms or the amount, or it didn't make sense, you could not agree to it and send the money back.
and then finally, for priority number 4, do we have a cost estimate of what it would cost for the Warren Street Basin to reconstruct that?
We haven't put prices to these yet, because it's just, we needed to get through the scoping first before we put the wheels in motion on the cost.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's hard to prioritize these because they're all worthwhile projects, obviously. To me, the only thing I would change, I'm for addressing any flooding issues prior to anything else. And while it's certainly necessary to get generators for these emergency shelters, I would put the Mercer Street Basin project above that. That's my only difference I would make.
Thank you. I think number 2, even though we should address that property, I think that we'd be tied up with the owners and the lien holders, federals, and the county. We have liens on it as well. I think that we could address that under unsafe structures, and just like we do any other building in the town of Phillipsburg that is unsafe, use town funds to raise it and prioritize the Warren Street Basin, and put number 2 down further. because I don't see us ever getting through all those liens in a timely manner anyway. So I would recommend moving that down, you know, and moving number 3 and 4 up. So we have 1, 2, and 3. How's that sound?
I'm okay with that, sure.
Okay?
I'm okay.
Okay, then I'll open it up to the general public for discussion. Anybody want to address it?
3 minutes.
Okay.
Come on, Joe.
Everybody.
That doesn't count.
All bells and whistles.
Just have to count to 3 minutes. David Morissette, 5 Fairview Heights, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. I had a question. Did I hear number 4 would, and that's the Mercer Street Basin,
No, Warren
Street Basin, that would run around 10 million?
No, that's
Oh, no.
number 5, Mercer.
Oh, Mercer, okay, Mercer Street would run around 10 million. And Mercer Street's the one that we're talking about taking a pipe over top of Green Acres land.
Right.
Okay. So if we only have 5 million, where would the other money come from?
Well, we couldn't do it.
Okay,
I mean, you'd have to fund it. Anything over the 5 million, you'd have to fund it in-house.
okay.
So, I mean, that's just, you know.
All right. Yeah, I was just curious. I misunderstood. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Randy Piazza, senior, 309 Mercer Street here in town. The only thing I just want to point out with the number 2 was that, if you remember, Council President, when we were working on it, there is an aquifer underneath that area, so we may want to be careful of that. So that's all I wanted to, kind of bring up. I didn't know if anybody was aware of it.
Well, that's another reason that, you know, I don't see us moving forward with that at all.
There's a lot of hoops that we're going to have to jump through.
Right.
So I don't think it would should as a top priority in town. I mean, you should be put some other things up above it, so it's gonna take time.
I agree.
That's it.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to move forward with this grant application, moving number 2 down, I don't know, to the bottom. I don't see it, you know, us getting through that, but there are some worthwhile projects, like I indicated. So, can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilman Piazza,
Yes.
Councilman Marino,
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy,
Yes.
Council Vice President Carr,
Yes.
Council President Wyatt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have no mayor's report tonight. We have about the other discussion on agenda items. I don't see anything.
I'm Joe Liner, I live at 392 South Main Street in Phillipsburg, and for the 4th time, it's a little got out of the bag already. But I want to throw in my 2 cents once again on the sidewalk by the McDonalds, on the Memorial Parkway side. I've already sent you a document some weeks ago on the danger of that. I'd like to reiterate once again. There is entrance and egress on the 3 eastbound lanes from Miller Street to Roseberry Street. And there's lots of them.
There's a
And
notice I was supposed to.
Thank you.
so they said,
Yeah, this whole thing. In the full-
Deb, could you wait until, you know, later for that?
yeah. This entrance and egress makes it very difficult for merging traffics. I was one of them. Dealing with pedestrian traffic. There is pedestrian crosswalks across each of these entrances and egresses, the roads anyhow. The town has actually changed one of them, First Street, so that the First Street people can't get onto the eastbound Route 22. Giving any kind of increase in pedestrian traffic on Mercer Street is dangerous, particularly since both properties on both sides already do not have sidewalks on them. The foot traffic we need to subsidize is on Marshal Street. That is services the high school, the junior high school, because they do commute that far. The students do commute that far. And it's not that far to go to Marshal Street for north and south. Also, the community college is serviced by that walkway. Okay. The last time I actually designed anything as an engineer was 1966. I've never been certified in anything civil. I've rebuilt a few houses, but I own them, so there was no licensing. But I did drive to the McDonald's, and I did look at that bank. I think the estimates are a little bit ridiculous. I think I'm completely wrong and uninformed on any kind of standard. Give me the extra minute. On any kind of standard. No, I should be done. Let's play by the rules.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else? We'll close it to the public, and we'll move on. We have a consent agenda. Anybody want anything pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, could I get a motion on the full consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Ryan?
Yes. And moving on to old business. Any council have any old business they'd like to bring up? Seeing none, we'll move on. New business is the best practice. Matt, you know.
Everybody's got a copy of this in their packet. As most of you know, best practices comes out every year from DCA. It's essentially the state checking on municipalities, making sure they're adhering to what they set forth as best practices. Some of them are pretty simple things, posting agendas, minutes to the website. They tend to use best practices to try to encourage behaviors that they want to see, such as installing electric car charging stations on public property. So you go through the checklist, of which the checklist appears in its entirety. You check off yes or no answers. You get points for yes answers, and you have to hit a certain number of points. If you drop below a certain threshold, the state can begin withholding some state aid or all state aid. We managed to answer all of the questions in excess of that threshold, so we have no impact on state aid. Susan actually informed me that we answered a question incorrectly no, and we should have answered yes, because all of our ordinances are posted to the web. So even with answering that question incorrectly, we still hit the threshold, so I'm happy about that, and kudos to Susan for spearheading that project.
Thank you very much. And there's no action that the council has to
No,
take.
we just need to
It's
discuss
just
like the
inform
minutes
them.
that they've been making.
Right. Okay. Now we need a motion for a firefighter application. Gilbert, would like to make a motion.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Ryan?
Yes, and thank you. Okay, public petitions. Anybody like to address the council? now's your time to address the council.
Can I see?
For 3 minutes, you can do whatever you want.
I don't know about that. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. This is a first for Joe, not to get up and say something or other petition. Okay, we'll move on to council open time. Councilman Marino.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you to Susan for updating the website so quickly and efficiently and getting everything out in public, getting our all of our minutes out there, our agendas out there in a timely manner. It's really appreciated, and I'm sure everybody who's looking for information appreciates it as well. And I'd like to thank the PU Tower and Eric Coleman and his Holly Jolly Market, Toys for Tots, for the weekend they put on this week. They raised, I think they collected 863 toys, and a few bikes and skateboards. They did a really nice job, and they did a good job transforming the old Union Station into a holiday market. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Councilman?
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Councilman Piazza said. I want to thank Aaron Coleman for putting all this together. The Union Station Market, the PU Tower, the toy train. It was great to see that many people in our downtown area. We also had our indoor market was open on Sunday. Obviously, the Polar Express was going. You could see people walking up and down the street in their pajamas, right? So it was a great weekend. There was a lot of activity in the downtown area. I know everybody probably had a happy Thanksgiving. I know I did, especially with the outcome of the football game. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Rose.
Yeah, just to reiterate, we had a great weekend of events. Just want to also just say again, congratulations to Salvage Sip, the newest cafe here in Phillipsburg. So I've already gone there so many times to get coffee. I'm like mainlining caffeine at this point. So welcome to Phillipsburg. Just let everyone know the open space committee meeting will be held, the first one, tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. at the municipal building. I believe it's open to the public. So feel free to come by if y'all would like. And then also just want to finally announce that we will have year-round lighting in Chappelle Park. It's been about 2 years, but we'll finally have it there. So most of the lighting will stay there. So it'll help beautify Chappelle Park, light it up, and I think it's just a great move. So I think for the next 2 years, we should really work on extending the lighting throughout downtown Phillipsburg, mostly in the area between Union, the Free Bridge and the Black Bridge, and try to light it up as more funds come available. So we use MPP grant funds to get the lights in Chappelle Park. I'm hoping to utilize more MPP, DWZ, and any other funding that we can with this council, and also the administration moving forward, and the council coming on. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. I think it was a great weekend. Saturday was a great weather day opposed to Sunday, so that all worked out. And I think it was a great day for everybody, all involved. And I thank everybody that was involved. So thank you very much. We don't need another executive session.
Council President, just that emergency waiver for street opening.
Oh, there was a street opening. Tim, you want to bring that up, the emergency waiver? There's an individual that has no heat, and they want to convert to gas, and we have a restriction on the paving of that street, so bring it forth and see where it goes.
Yes, the property owner at 979 Wilbur Avenue through Elizabethtown applied for a street opening permit to install new gas service on Steel Street because the gas main is on the side of their property. It entails a 3x3 excavation along the grass line, curb line of the side of their house. The road was paved in 2020, so it's within the 5-year moratorium. They currently have oil heat that is not working or has not been working for, so they don't currently have functioning heat in the house, and they're looking to convert to natural gas and install a new heating system that relies on natural gas through Elizabethtown's program they have in place if you convert to gas. So property owner's not in town today to be able to be here, and neither is Elizabethtown, so they asked me to submit the request. So that came in late this morning for a waiver request. Since it's a conversion, I can't approve it as an emergency, no heat, if they already had existing gas. So that's coming before council.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
They don't have heat, and they're willing to upgrade the house legally. And, I think, yeah, they need heat, and they're willing to make an improvement. I'm okay.
No, the street, we have these moratoriums, and it just seems that, every time, somebody wants to convert from oil to gas, we just throw the moratorium out, so we might as well not have the moratorium.
I don't think it's just an issue of just wanting to convert. I think it's an issue of needing heat, and while they're doing, you could put money in an old system, or we could give them, the waiver to upgrade the heat. There's twofold there. It's not just wanting to, it's needing heat along with the want.
That is true, but you can put a new oil fire furnace in, or you can put a gas fire furnace in.
Sure. Yeah, but I don't know, I think it improves our community. It's cleaner, it's less expensive, improves the value of the house.
My only positive thought in it is that we don't have to cross this road. The main is on the same side as the dwelling, so we only need a 3x3, along the curb line. That's what I understand. Is that correct?
That is what Elizabethtown submitted on their application.
Okay.
So we would recommend they infrared the patch back. So and after they patch the road, they can come back and blend the pavement back together so the patch lasts a lot longer.
They never do, right? But I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Roll call?
Councilman Piazza?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy?
Yes.
Council Vice President Clark?
Yes.
Council President Wyatt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Make a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.